You know, over the years, I've struggled with dust collection like every other woodworker. I've built undersized systems with the wrong components and the wrong methods. But this time around, I finally have a new shop where I can take what I've learned and finally build a proper system the right way from the beginning. So whether you are looking to build a new system or maybe make the system that you already have a little bit better, then this is the video for you. If you want to see how I did it, stick around for another episode of Shop Projects. So at the heart of every dust collection system, as you guessed it, is obviously the dust collector. In my case, I have a 2 horsepower Grizzly. It's powered by 240 nominal volts. It pulls about 1700 CFM with 10 inches of static pressure. It has a pleated filter on top and plastic bag on the bottom. This pleated filter works really well at 1 micron. You won't see pretty much anything in your shop. And this is a very effective dust collector. It's very budget friendly. Some of the higher end dust collectors that you see a lot of YouTube woodworkers using and the like are cyclone units, and I've never really gotten into those for a garage shop. I've never really found them necessary. I find that if you take full advantage of the machine and you plumb it correctly, you don't really ever need anything bigger than this. If you've got a bigger shop, 1,000, 2,000 square feet, you're obviously going to need a bigger machine. But just know that you can get away with a lot if you actually install the thing correctly. So this brings us to our next topic. What do we use to build a dust collection system? Well, there are a lot of materials available, and without experience, you really don't know what to use. So you gravitate to what? Probably the first or cheapest option, which is either flex hose or PVC. In the case of flex hose, you basically just connect this from one machine to your dust collector, and bam, you got dust collection. And if you're really cheap like I am, you saran wrap 2 pieces together because things are tight when you get started. Next option is PVC. PVC is not bad. PVC is readily available. You can buy it at the home center. It's easy to cut, easy to put together. The problem with PVC comes in the connections and the sizes available. The first caveat is that this really only comes in 6 inches or 4 inches, and 6 inches is hard to find. And the 4 inches is really small for a dust collection system. The second problem is that these fittings aren't really conducive for proper airflow. A sharp 90 like this is terrible. If you put these in your system, it's going to start slicing your CFM down. If you use a T, it's even worse, and that run is not going to pick up that much dust. In this case, it's a sweep, but it's nothing like what I've got on the wall behind me, which is basically a Y, which has a 45 off and a 45 joint as well. So you're really taking a 90-degree joint, but you're splitting it. So you're making a nice gradual change in airflow and not disrupting it, and thus creating great losses. So I don't want to open up a can of worms, but there's a huge heated debate online about whether these systems will blow up your house. And I can tell you, if we're using these over 10 years or so, they will not blow up your house. There's just simply not enough static there to start a fire. The second thing is really what a lot of people try to do is ground the system to try to dissipate some of the static. I've done it, I've tried it, it really doesn't make any sense because this is an insulator anyways, and you can't ground an insulator. So you just have to basically live with the static buildup that's on here. So while it's not a safety concern, it's just kind of inconvenient. I have my CNC over the years, and I'd be leaning over every single time getting shocked. It sucks, and it's really just an inconvenience. Other people will use plastics like this, and again, there's nothing wrong with it. You got to use what you got to use. Another option that's cheap but also effective and gets into the metal world is to use heating system fittings. The problem with those is they're mostly 30 gauge and they're also crimped in the wrong direction, where the crimp is not facing the direction of airflow, it's facing away. Why? Because the heating system is blowing air, it's not pulling air back in. In our case, we want all the crimps to face our dust collector so that dust doesn't get jammed in here or leak out. And the ultra high option is to go with a clamp type fitting that has a gasket. These systems are quite expensive. They're really cool from an engineering point of view because they have no losses. They're pretty much perfect, and you're basically getting a box of parts that you put together on one weekend. They're really effective for cabinet shops because they don't have any downtime when they need to set up a new machine. But that's out of the reach for most people because a shop like this is going to cost me probably $3,000 to pipe with that system when I can do all this, and I can get a system that has almost the same efficiency for about $500. So we've talked about materials, let's talk about the size of your ductwork. In this case, I'm using a 6-inch ductwork because I have a 6-inch port in the impeller of my dust collector. If you have something like an 8-inch port on your dust collector, you should run 8-inch pipe. You should run the largest size pipe that your machine will allow from the source of the dust collector right to the end of the tool, as far as you can go with rigid pipe. Now in my case, I made a flexible whip because this dust collector moves and vibrates. That's never really a good idea to use a machine that moves around or vibrates with rigid ductwork. It'll come loose. So I used a little flexible whip. It was the one compromise that I made this whole system. But this allows me a little bit of movement while I'm throwing the bag out in the trash. One point, and probably the most important point I'm going to make in this video, is to not confuse something like a shop vac and a dust collector, because they often get confused all the time. I mean, it's pretty simple to explain. Look at the cross-sectional area between a 6-inch pipe and maybe an 1.25 inch pipe of shop vac hose. These serve two different functions, and a lot of people try to do too much with this, and they don't get what they want, and they think it's a tool, but it's not. They're just using the wrong tool for the job. Shop vacs are good because they move air at a higher velocity and a greater suction, and they are good at cleaning out things like your car or your shop, or using with small portable power tools that don't create a lot of dust. In the case of an edge sander or a planer or something like a drum sander, you're creating a large volume of dust and chips that need to be evacuated from the system. And the only way you're going to do that is if you're moving a lot of air. And that's why CFM is really important. You care about how much volume you're moving through the pipe and not necessarily just the velocity. That's what differentiates the two. And it's important to understand the differences and also why it's so important that you effectively optimize your system. So here's a quick overview of my entire system. This is the dust collector here, which is the Grizzly 2 horsepower. I take basically a 6-inch pipe. I go vertically, break off for one machine with the blast gate. Come up, I have a long sweeping 90, which is important that you don't want to do a sharp 90. And then I'm coming down my first horizontal run. I have a drop down for my table saw, my edge sander, and this comes down. Basically I have a blast gate, and I'm basically taking rigid duct almost all the way to the table saw, 6-inch. This saw stop has a 4-inch port, and I basically only reduced right at the machine. I'm forced to in this case, and I'll show you another case where I actually switched it because I could. On the edge sander, same thing. I'm basically breaking off with a Y, 45 down, 45 over, and then another 45. No abrupt changes in direction. And then I'm going to a 4-inch port because I'm forced to, but really close to the machine. I have a small flexible whip hose only for the purpose of pulling this machine out when I want to do topside sanding. And then as I come farther down the system, I have one more flex hose for my shaper. This is my second shaper, and it comes down to the shaper here, and I connect up. Again, I'm using flex hose only where I need it, and not wholesale from machine to the source. And then I have it capped off right at the end of this run because that's where I need to expand for my chop saw station. My second major branch comes off with the Y, transitions to a 45, so I have a nice transition, smooth wall all the way down. And I couldn't fit in a long 90, so I use an adjustable 90 here just to come down. It's an end of run here, so it's not too much of a loss. And this comes down and feeds my jointer and my bandsaw. And I basically coming down, I go 6 inches right to the jointer and 4 inches right to the bandsaw. And this is what this long hose is for other tools around the shop. And for the jointer, I actually left a long flex hose because I pull this out sometimes when I'm doing longer 10-foot boards or so. And then I took basically an 8-jack boot, cut the crimps off, and I rebuilt it so that it's basically flowing into the pipe, and then it's flange mounted right to the side of the jointer. Traditionally, these jointers just feed right to the ground. There's really no mount for this, so I had to make this and rivet myself. So while my system is pretty much fully installed, I thought I'd give a quick little overview of how to put some of these connections together and show you how easy it is to implement this ductwork in your shop. All you really need is a few basic hand tools, such as a riveter, a hand riveter in case I have a pneumatic riveter, but I use a hand riveter just to show you how easy it is. Crimpers, these are HVAC crimpers, as well as tin snips, angled shears. This is good for cutting ductwork. Cordless drill with, say, like an 1/8-inch drill bit if you want to use 1/8-inch rivets, and obviously rivets. You can use aluminum or stainless steel. I prefer to use aluminum because they're a lot easier with the hand rivet guns. You also want to pick up foil tape. This is good for putting between joints, as well as clear silicone where you can't put the tape. You also need some hose clamps and some strapping to hook the duct up to the ceiling. This is just a perforated strapping. It's a really cheap way to strap up the 6-inch duct that I'm using to the joists above or the walls, whatever you have in your shop. So let's talk about putting this duct together. In this case, I've already done most of the system, so I'm going to show you how to just do some sample connections here. This is a 6-inch blast gate with a reducer. So this is just showing you basically an aluminum blast gate and just the metal ductwork. First thing you're going to do is drill your 1/8-inch hole through both parts. This would be a clearance hole in this case. And then get your rivets out and start loading them up to put them in place. To load up your rivet, you put the pin in the gun first, and obviously you pick the die that fits your rivet, in this case an 1/8-inch rivet. Put it in the gun, right to the bottom, and you just hold the handle down just slightly just so it doesn't fall out as you're placing it. Stick it in the hole, and then you're going to press. Usually 1 or 2 presses should get you for an aluminum rivet depending on the thickness that you're putting together, and that's it. That's how easy it is to put in a rivet. Once you've put in your 3 to 4 rivets around the circle here, you can apply some silicone. On these I tend to put a bead of nice clear silicone around it so that there's no leakage, and then I'll put a little dab of silicone on all the rivets. And just to illustrate how easy it is to remove the rivets if you change your mind or you make a mistake, all you have to do is drill the head out and pull the parts apart, and then you're good to go. These are just as quick as screws, and if you get a pneumatic riveter and they're not very expensive, it'll speed this up a lot and it'll be much faster than using screws. Joining ducts together when you don't have enough length or you need to join smaller pieces that you have left over is really easy. All you need to do is take your tape measure. In this case I'm using a fast cap flatback, which I highly recommend if you're ever doing any duct work, and you lay down your line, draw it all the way around the duct, and cut it with your tin snips. Also keep in mind when you're working with sheet metal and doing tin knocking work, it's a good idea to use gloves. This stuff is really sharp and the burrs created on sheet metal will cut you every time. Next up, we're going to crimp the end of the duct. You take your crimping tool, put it right into the end, and crimp all the way around the circle. Sometimes you might have to actually reef it inward to get this duct to fit, depending on the diameters that you're working with. And if you got a helper with you, this is who you pass it off to, because this is the most tedious part of the project. So now that you got your first crimp fitting together, you might have to take something like a mallet to put them together. It is a snug fit if you want to drive it all the way down to the bottom. You want to get good engagement so that when you put rivets in, it's got some meat to go into. This is pretty much the same process. We're just repeating that we did on the blast gate. You're putting a couple holes in place, you're riveting it together, and then at the end you're going to put some foil tape to seal it off. To install the ducts, I found that this perforated strap hanger works really good. This is meant for HVAC ducting but works on the same process. You basically hang this up in the ceiling. You can hang up one side with the strap that I found if you're working by yourself. Put the duct in place to rest it on something and then work on the other end. And I just screw these in place to the joist above. You can make all kinds of U-straps and modify these as you need to, cut them with tin snips and screw them in place. And if you really want to secure them well, you can even rivet them to the duct that you're holding up. And once you have all your duct in place, don't forget when you're doing this that you seal everything up. It's a lot easier if you seal up everything as you're going. You put the tape and silicone in place before you put the stuff on the wall and ceiling so that you can get good bead around all the joints. And that's pretty much it. It's a nice, easy, straightforward system to put together. It can probably be done in a weekend once you purchase all the parts, but just make sure you make a plan ahead of time. In my old shop, my table saw was at the end of the line and received a porous dust collection. So this time around I changed that up and I put this table saw and my shaper at the beginning of the dust collection routing so that I got the most effective dust control on the tool that I use the most. So there you have it. Dust collection isn't rocket science, but it does require some extra planning ahead of time if you want to get a really good system that works well for you. I found that learning from experience and from the mistakes I've made in the past, I've been able to build a better system to serve me for now and for the future. Less cleanup at the tools that don't make any dust anymore, and better for my health. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up below or leave a comment. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing today because I'll be doing more project videos in the future. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.